The sun hung low over the busy street market, coating everything in a warm, golden glow. Vendors called out their prices, children darted between stalls, and the smell of roasted corn and spices drifted lazily through the air. Amid the noise and bustle, Arthur and Mary Whitaker walked slowly, hand in hand, savoring their favorite weekend ritual. Arthur, in his worn tweed jacket, adjusted his pace to match Mary's careful steps. Her silver hair shimmered softly in the breeze, and every now and then she laughed, a warm, gentle sound that somehow cut through the city noise. "Look, Arthur," Mary said, pointing to a stall selling handmade wooden elephants. "Just like the ones we used to see in Thailand." Arthur smiled. "We should bring one home for Ethan. Maybe it'll remind him to take a vacation." Mary chuckled, shaking her head. "Our boy, rest. Impossible." They were reaching the end of the row of stalls when suddenly 3 teenagers, hoodies, sneakers, phones out, stepped directly into their path. Their expressions were mischievous, eyes filled with the kind of reckless thrill that follows youth without discipline. "Hey guys," one of them snickered, raising his phone. "Watch this." Arthur barely had a second to register the cold glint of a Coca-Cola bottle in the boy's hand. The teenager shook the bottle violently, his grin widening. "No, please," Arthur started. But the hiss and explosion of carbonation drowned out his words. Splash. Freezing, sticky soda drenched Arthur's shirt and spattered across Mary's blouse. She gasped, flinching as the cold shock hit her, clutching Arthur's arm for support. The teens erupted in laughter, loud, mocking, high-pitched. "Yo, did you get that?" one shouted to the boy recording. "Dude, it's perfect. They look like drowned rats." More laughter. More phones lifted. Arthur, cheeks burning, gently steadied Mary. Her fragile frame trembled, not just from the cold but from humiliation. They were in their 70s, dignified, soft-spoken, private people. Being publicly ridiculed was agony for them. Around them, people froze. A few stared. A few looked away. No one intervened. Arthur's jaw tightened. He didn't mind insults aimed at him, but seeing Mary humiliated brought a rare spark of anger. "That was unnecessary," he said, voice trembling, but not from fear. The teens only laughed harder. "Ah, is the old man mad? Relax, Grandpa, it's just a prank. Don't fall over, yeah." One boy raised his bottle again, this time aiming deliberately at Mary. Arthur stepped between them instinctively, protective. "You stop that right then." But the sentence died on his lips. Because the air shifted, the noise of the market seemed to dull, a ripple of silence spreading as people instinctively moved aside. Footsteps, steady, controlled, powerful, approached from behind the teens. A tall figure cut through the crowd like a blade. Wearing worn jeans, boots, and a plain gray t-shirt, he looked like any other civilian, until you saw his eyes. Focused, calm, cold as steel. Ethan Whitaker, their son. He had arrived home from deployment only hours earlier, dropping his bags at their house before coming to surprise them at the market. He had expected hugs, chatter, and Mary's famous lemon bars. Instead, he found this. He didn't shout. He didn't rush forward. He simply stopped behind the teens, posture relaxed, hands loose at his sides. But there was something in the way he stood, rooted, centered, coiled, that made every person nearby instinctively step back. Mary blinked in disbelief. "Ethan," Arthur exhaled, relief washing over his features. The teens, however, didn't turn around. "Not yet." "Round 2, one said, shaking the bottle again. Ethan's voice cut through the air, quiet, even, controlled. "That's enough." The teens stiffened. Slowly, they turned, and Ethan's expression told them everything. They had just made the worst mistake of their lives. The teens had expected an annoyed shopper, maybe a scolding old man, or at worst, a vendor shouting at them. They had not expected him. The tallest boy, hood up, grin fading, looked Ethan up and down. He didn't see a soldier. He didn't see a Navy SEAL. He saw only a man in a plain t-shirt, and arrogance filled the gaps his perception couldn't. Mind your business, dude," he said, trying to regain his bravado. Ethan didn't move, didn't blink, didn't even seem to breathe. "It is my business," he replied softly. Something about the calmness of his voice sent a ripple through the crowd. It wasn't loud, it wasn't threatening, But it carried weight. Controlled, measured, almost surgical. The boy with the phone laughed nervously. Relax, bro. We're just messing around. They're fine. Ethan's eyes flicked to his mother, her blouse soaked, her hands shaking slightly, then to his father, who stood protectively but clearly shaken. They're not fine, Ethan said. And you're going to fix that. A moment of silence. Then the smallest teen barked a laugh. Fix it? What are you, Superman? He nudged his friend. Look at this clown. Thinks he's tough. Ethan's jaw didn't even tighten. He simply shifted his left foot half an inch. So subtle the boys didn't notice, but the crowd did. A murmur swept through the circle forming around them. Arthur opened his mouth. Ethan, please, let's just go. His son didn't take his eyes off the teens. Dad, I've got it. Mary touched his arm softly, her voice trembling. Honey, don't. Her hand barely grazed his sleeve before Ethan stepped forward. Just one step, but it felt like a thunderclap. The teen holding the Coke bottle instinctively stepped back. Ethan closed the distance with a calm, deliberate presence that didn't match the rising tension of the moment. You threw soda on my parents, he said evenly. Now you're going to apologize. And delete the videos. And if we don't, the tallest boy snapped. Ethan didn't answer verbally. Instead, in a movement almost too fast to follow, he reached out, not roughly, not violently, and took hold of the boy's wrist. Not squeezing, not twisting, just holding. Yet the boy froze instantly. His bravado evaporated, because the grip was iron. Controlled, perfectly placed on pressure points. The kind of precision only someone highly trained could manage. Ah. Hey, let go. The boy yelped, suddenly realizing this man was not an average passerby. Ethan lowered his voice, leaning in just enough for only the boy to hear. No one here wants this to escalate. Including you. He gently angled the boy's hand until the Coke bottle slipped free. Ethan caught it midair, without even looking at it, and set it aside on a nearby table. The crowd murmured again. One of the teens swore under his breath. Dude, what is he? The nervous boy with the phone took a shaky step back. Bro, maybe we should. Ethan released the first teen's wrist. Not with a shove, but with a controlled guide that kept the boy off balance just long enough for his ego to break. Then Ethan looked at all three of them. You're going to apologize, he repeated calmly. Now. The tallest boy swallowed hard. His hoodie slipped back slightly, revealing fear in his eyes. Sorry, he stammered. The others chimed in, tripping over their own voices. Yeah, sorry, man. We didn't mean it like that. It was just a joke. We're sorry. Ethan nodded once. Good. Now delete the recordings. They obeyed instantly, opening their phones, showing him the screens, deleting clips with trembling fingers. Empty your trash. Folders, Ethan added quietly. They did. Only when he was satisfied did Ethan speak again. I'm not asking you to be perfect, he said, voice steady and controlled. But learn from this. Be better than this. The boys nodded rapidly, almost tripping over each other as they backed away. And for the first time since the incident began, the crowd applauded, softly at first, then swelling into warm, grateful claps. Arthur placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. Mary wiped a tear from her cheek. Ethan finally turned to them, his hard expression melting into something soft, warm, protective. Let's get you home, he said. Ethan walked between his parents as the market slowly returned to life. Vendors resumed calling out prices, children ran past laughing, and the scent of roasted corn drifted back on the warm breeze, as if nothing had happened. But for Arthur and Mary, everything still felt shaken. Mary clutched her damp blouse with one hand and Ethan's arm with the other. She tried to smile, but it wavered. Sweetheart, she said softly, we didn't want you to see that. Ethan slowed his pace. I'm glad I did. Arthur adjusted his sticky jacket, embarrassment lingering on his features. Your mother and I are old enough to handle a little trouble. We didn't want to worry you after everything you've been through. Ethan's eyes softened. Dad, I'm never too far away to protect you both. Not ever. Mary's lips trembled, part pride, part relief. They walked toward the quieter part of the market, where the noise faded behind them. The cobblestone path turned narrow and shaded by overhanging trees. Leaves rustled overhead, and for the first time since the confrontation, things felt calm. Still, Arthur's steps were slightly unsteady. Ethan noticed instantly. "Dad, you all right?" Arthur nodded, but his voice betrayed him. "Those boys. They didn't see us as people. Just targets for their foolishness." His jaw clenched. "I've lived long enough to see this world change in ways I don't understand." Ethan guided him gently by the elbow. "And I've lived long enough to know one thing. Cruelty is loud, but decency is stronger." Mary looked up at her son with a small, grateful smile. "You always were our protector," she said. "Even as a little boy." Ethan chuckled softly. "Yeah, I seem to remember you chasing me around the house with a wooden spoon for climbing the roof." Mary gasped dramatically. "It was a perfectly good roof until you jumped off it." Arthur laughed. A deep, warm laugh that cracked through the remaining tension. The heaviness in the air eased. They reached a bench just outside the market entrance. Ethan guided them to sit. Arthur lowered himself slowly, groaning playfully. "Your mother and I are getting too old for this," he said. Mary nudged him gently. "Speak for yourself." Ethan sat beside them. For a moment, the three simply watched the movement of the people passing by, the life of the city continuing, unaware of the storm that had just passed. Mary touched Ethan's hand. "You've changed," she said quietly. "Not in a bad way. But, you carry something in your eyes now. Something heavier." Ethan looked down, thumb brushing the edge of his jeans. "Comes with the job." Arthur leaned back. "You don't have to pretend with us, son." Ethan hesitated, then finally exhaled. "I've seen worse than what happened today," he admitted. "A lot worse. I've seen people hurt just because someone could. I've seen cruelty dressed as jokes. And I've seen hesitation cost lives." He paused, eyes lifting to meet theirs. "So when I saw those kids, I recognized the beginning of something ugly. Something I've had to stop on a much larger scale." Mary squeezed his hand tighter. "You did the right thing," she whispered. Ethan nodded, but the shadow in his eyes didn't fade completely. "I don't want to be the person who solves everything with force. That's not who I am with you." "You weren't forceful," Arthur said firmly. "You were controlled. You protected us without hurting anyone. That's the man we raised." Ethan smiled faintly, grateful, relieved. A gentle breeze passed through the trees, brushing against their clothes and carrying away the sticky scent of soda still clinging to their sleeves. Mary sighed contentedly and leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Let's go home, sweetheart," she said softly. "I'll make dinner, and you can tell us everything you've been doing." Ethan stood, offering each of them a hand. "As long as there's pie." Arthur snorted. "There's always pie." They headed down the quiet street together, three silhouettes stretching long in the late afternoon light, united, safe, and stronger for what they had endured. Behind them, the market continued bustling, but the memory of the confrontation still lingered in the air like a warning, like a story waiting to spread. And for the three Whitakers, home suddenly felt closer than it had in a long time. Long after the Whitakers had disappeared down the quiet street, the three teens stood frozen where the confrontation had ended. The market's energy vibrated around them again, vendors shouting prices, children laughing, but the boys felt none of it. Their chests were still tight. Their hearts still beat too fast. The tallest boy, Chase, swallowed hard and wiped his hands on his hoodie. "Dude, what was that guy?" No one answered. The shortest boy, Tyler, the one who had recorded the prank, kept staring at his phone, as if afraid the man's voice would come through the screen again telling him to delete something he missed. "Guys, seriously," Tyler whispered, "did you see his face? He didn't even get mad. He just looked at us and grabbed you like it was nothing," the third boy, Jordan, added. "Man, he barely touched you and you couldn't even move." Chase bristled, embarrassed. "He surprised me, okay. Anyone would have freaked out if some dude grabbed them by the wrist like that." Jordan shook his head. "Not like that. He didn't jerk you or twist your arm. He just held you. You were stuck. Like he flicked a switch in your arm." Tyler finally lowered his phone. "I bet he's ex-military." Chase scoffed, but weakly. "Everyone says that whenever someone knows how to fight." "No," Jordan said quietly, his voice trembling. "My older brother is a Marine. He talked about guys like that. The quiet ones. The ones who don't posture, don't yell. The ones who stay calm because they've been through real stuff. That guy was one of them. I'm telling you." Chase didn't reply, because deep down, He knew Jordan was right. The man's eyes had held something cold but controlled. Something dangerous, but disciplined. Not rage, not ego. Something they didn't understand. Something they had never faced. Tyler exhaled shakily. We could have really gotten hurt. No, Jordan corrected. He didn't want to hurt us. You could see that. He wanted to warn us. Chase looked away, jaw tight. He humiliated us. Tyler and Jordan exchanged looks. Dude, Tyler said carefully, we humiliated ourselves. We threw soda on two old people. The words landed heavy. Chase's face flushed crimson, shame mixing with fear. But it was just a joke, Chase muttered. Jordan stepped in front of him, eyes hard. It wasn't funny, not once. They looked terrified. We looked stupid. Chase opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time, he saw the scene from the outside. Arthur shielding Mary, Mary's trembling hand, the crowd's silence, his own laughter, shrill and cruel. It made his stomach twist. Tyler rubbed the back of his neck. Do you think he'll come after us? Jordan shook his head immediately. No, if he wanted to scare us, he would have done more. If he wanted to hurt us, we wouldn't be standing here. He just wanted us to learn. And they had. Silence stretched between them, awkward, heavy, uncomfortable. Finally, Tyler spoke. Maybe we should go apologize. Properly. Chase stared at him. What, now? No, Jordan said, surprising both of them. But soon. We know where they walk on weekends. They're locals. We can find them. Chase frowned, but not with anger. With guilt. I don't know if they'll even listen. Jordan shrugged. Maybe not. But it's not about them forgiving us, it's about us not being the kinds of idiots who think hurting people is content. Tyler nodded. Yeah. Chase shoved his hands into his hoodie pocket, shoulders slumping. Fine, he muttered. We apologize. For real this time. Jordan gave him a small, relieved smile. The boys started walking out of the market, but they weren't swaggering anymore. Their steps were quieter, smaller, humbled. Before leaving, Chase paused. He looked back at the spot where Ethan had stood, immovable, terrifying, composed. Whoever that guy is, Chase said quietly, he didn't just scare us. Tyler looked at him. Then what? Chase exhaled. He made us think. Jordan clapped his friend on the shoulder. That's what real men do. They disappeared into the fading evening light, their laughter gone, replaced by the kind of silence that leads to change.